now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. The Vatileaks scandal has erupted onto the bookstands and newspapers of Italy and the world. Only this time, there are 2 arrests instead of 1. To break it all down, a member of the papal posse and editor-in-chief of thecatholicthing.org, Robert Royal, joins us from Chicago. Robert, thank you for coming in.
Good to be with you, Raymond.
This week, La Repubblica published yet another interview between Pope Francis and the 91-year-old atheist journalist Eugenio Scalfari. Now, this is the same journalist who's published repeated interviews with the Pope, and many of those interviews have had to be retracted or corrected. Here's what was reported this time on the issue of the Synod on the Family and whether divorced and remarried Catholics might be admitted to communion. Scalfari quotes the Pope as saying, "For that which regards the admission of the divorced to the sacraments, it confirms that this principle has been accepted by the Synod. This is the bottom line result. The de facto appraisals are entrusted to the confessors. But at the end of a faster or slower path, all the divorced who ask will be admitted." Why does the Pope keep talking to this man, first of all? What is the connection here, Robert Royal, and what do you make of those comments?
Well, as you know, Raymond, we have many mysteries in the Catholic religion, and this is a new one that, many of us continue to try to figure out. The Pope reads, he says, La Repubblica every day. Apparently he has some kind of sympathy with the basic political line that it takes in Italy, which is socialist. By the way, it's not communist, it's socialist. Why he has this soft spot for Scalfari, we don't know either. But I would be very cautious. I mean, I would hope that our viewers would be cautious about all claims like this, because many claims in Rome, Rome is such a city of intrigues when it comes to these financial dealings, secret deals, mysteries. We need to take this with a grain of salt. And at least Father Federico Lombardi came out and explained that this does not represent the Holy Father's thinking.
Robert, let me share with the audience what he said, and then I want you to react to that. He, as Bob said, Father Federico Lombardi, the Vatican spokesman, told our Edward Penton at the National Catholic Register that the Scalfari does not transcribe or record the exact words of the Pope, and, quote, "The latest article is in no way reliable and cannot be considered as the Pope's thinking." Well, is that a flat denial, or might the Pope have said something like this, Robert, in different words?
Again, a mystery. A number of my friends in Rome and here in America think that was a kind of a lawyerly denial on the part of Father Lombardi. I don't quite see him as that type of spokesman. I think that what he was just trying to say, without flatly contradicting what Scalfari said, it does not reflect the Holy Father's thinking. I myself am puzzled because I heard when I was covering the Synod in Rome, and I was there for the whole month of October, as you know, I heard from several people that the Holy Father has said on several occasions that he does not support the Casper proposal, this path with confessors, with the internal forum. But yet I think we have to say that everything that he did, as opposed to what he said about his belief, tends in this direction. So could he have said something like this to Scalfari, that Scalfari, a 91-year-old man who doesn't take notes, garbled and then regurgitated in a way that maybe overstated it or maybe stated it accurately? We don't know.
Yeah. Damian Thompson in The Spectator this week suggested that in the wake of the Synod, he believes at least, that Pope Francis supports the Casper proposal and, quote, "Never before has the Catholic Church looked so much like the Anglican Communion," end quote. Your reaction?
Well, that's a big comparison, and it's hard to make comparisons of this sort. But I think what we can say is never before, at least in modern times, has the Catholic Church been so uncertain about what a pope is teaching. Now, we had a great deal of chaos after Vatican II, which you expect after a large event like an ecumenical council. But in terms of a single pontiff, I think we have to say in all candor that it's very difficult for us, even those of us who are loyal Catholics and who wish to protect the Pope and to be loyal to him personally, that it's difficult to know exactly what it is that he's doing. And there didn't seem to be any clamor for this change about divorce and communion for the divorced and remarried. I myself think that all of us should stick to the text that came out of the Synod for now. Now, if the Holy Father wants to interpret that text as saying that it permits communion for the divorced and remarried, fine. But Sandro Magister pointed out that the earlier drafts, which had language in them about access to the sacraments, that language was removed from the final version because it would not have passed. We knew from the very start in Rome that the Casper proposal, if proposed directly to the bishops who had been chosen to come to Rome in the Synod, would not have passed. And in fact, it's largely because of appointments by the Holy Father that those even more nuanced versions just barely got the two-thirds majority.
Bob, I have to move to the Vatileaks scandal. 2 books were released this week based on leaked Vatican correspondence. The books were Greed and Merchants in the Temple. They chronicle the corruption in the Vatican's financial dealings. How serious or damaging are the documents that have been published? And was there anything new to your eye that really stuck out?
Well, the shocking thing is that 2 members of a previous commission created to help reform Vatican finances leaked to journalists and to writers. They were known to have connections, by the way, with external journalistic sources. And again, Sandro Magister, the great Italian Vaticanista, said this 2 years ago in his blog, over 2.5 years ago, when they were appointed, that it was a problem. There isn't much that's new here. You know, one of the difficulties in trying to clear up Vatican finances at this point is that no one knows all the holdings of the Vatican. I spoke several months ago to a person who occupied a very, very high position in the Vatican Bank. And he and I were sitting at lunch in Rome, and he said to me that the church probably owns 1/4 of the real estate in Rome, but no one knows. Because over the centuries, it just sort of has accumulated all these things, and they're owned by one dicastery or one department and another. And so it's going to be a long process to figure this out. Now, why 2 people who seem to be decent people, although there were worries about them from the very first, why they would speak outside of normal channels to journalists. You know, this is now 3 people who've been put in handcuffs by the Vatican itself, by the Holy See. 3 people who've been arrested and put in jail, not by the Italians, not by the local Roman authorities, but by the Vatican. So something extraordinary is happening that we haven't yet been able to see, and it's behind the scenes.
And just for clarity, this was a laywoman and a Monsignor who is a secretary in this Vatican Secretariat on the economy. These are not minor figures. Is this as serious as the case you think involving Gabriele, the Pope Benedict's butler?
Well, again, my sources in Rome, the ones I would be most, I would trust the most on this kind of issue, seem to think that what's happening here is a larger effort to discredit the church. And this one person in particular, who I think knows the most about it, has said to me on several occasions that it doesn't really matter who the Pope is. It's not that it was Benedict, it's not that it's Francis. You may regard them as very different figures and in terms of their theologies and where they want to move the church, very different. But there seems to be underneath that difference a generalized desire to discredit the Catholic Church as a whole. So we want to be cautious about what we see coming out here. We want to make sure that people go back in and investigate. I myself think that Cardinal Pell, who's sometimes under attack himself, is exactly the right man for the job in that economic committee that he's heading. He's been criticized himself. I just saw a story today for spending about $500,000 in setting up that office, which is, of course, utterly absurd because EWTN and My Faith and Reason Institute spend far more than that every year, and we're not startups at this point.
Yeah.
But there seems to be an attempt by some people to use these economic uncertainties to discredit certain figures, but the larger picture, according to people that I would regard as informed and trustworthy, is that this is generally intended to discredit the church, especially the church in Rome.
Very good. Robert Royal, thank you always for your insight and for your penetrating analysis. You can find Robert Royal's columns at thecatholicthing.org. Thank you again, Bob.